families, of course, but we have very specific issues in the black community, and we are trying to help those issues and to help resolve those issues using nutrition, but from a holistic approach. You know, Dr. Africa was all about holistic health, and holistic health has to be health that looks at your. You know, people talk about the mind, body, and spirit, but in reality, we're dealing with the spirit person first, and then the mind, and then the mind dictates how healthy the body is. So it's really your spirit, then your mind, and then your body. And so when we say holistic, that is what we mean. So that when we're talking about healing the black family, we want to be very specific on what we are talking about today. So let me get to the specials first, right? I should tell you that the Livette HFB Spa is located at the corner of First Avenue. The building is number 10, the corner of First Avenue and 8th Street in Barataria. And the number to call to get us is 674-5015. That number again is 674-5015. We do holistic health assessments, and they normally, that assessment takes about an hour. And the cost for that assessment is usually $4.95. For this month, we are giving all of our listeners this morning, if you call today, you're getting a free book from Dr. Leonard Coldwell, and that book is called The Only Answer to Cancer. The book costs $295, and you also get a free CBC, which is a complete blood count, with your holistic health assessment, which really means that when you pay $4.95, you're basically getting the assessment for free. So that's something that you don't want to miss. And after today's show, you'll see how and why it's so important to have a holistic health assessment done to really see where you are in, where your health or what your health status is. So we're giving specials on U-Juice. We are now available online, so visit our website at liveathealth.com. You can also book your appointments online. And also U-Juice Roots with an S.com. So UJUICE Roots with an S.com. And you will be able to get U-Juice, which I'll talk about later on in the show as well. We also have specials on U-Juice, so check that out. And you get free shipping. So even if you buy a 6-pack, you get free shipping anywhere in Trinidad. So check that out. So what is the situation in Trinidad and Tobago today and the rest of the world, unfortunately? But in Trinidad, we are leading the Caribbean in terms of chronic lifestyle diseases. And we talk about the burden of chronic lifestyle diseases because it burdens us as a society. There's a cost to it. Our budget, which we're about to have another one. Last year, our health budget was over $6 billion. There's a burden when people are sick. There is a burden on the person. If you have a sick person in the home, there's a burden because someone has to look after them. And so that they can't make money because they have to look after the sick. So we have to have personal responsibility for our health. So now I want to jump straight into my topic today because to start, it's a 4-part series, and today we're going to talk about how life actually begins, because we can't talk about healing the black family unless we understand our genesis. Where did we come from? How did we learn the things that we learned, which we call learned behavior? Everything that we know as Trinidadians was programmed into our mind, into our subconscious minds, and that's why we went through a bonding process, so that in order for a person to bond to the country that they're born in, there's a process. You usually have a national anthem, which you start to learn as a child, which instills the values of the country in the child's mind. You have colors on a flag, so your citizens bond to the colors, and then your citizens bond to the actual culture itself and the song, the music. So you must have, so to bond the people to a country, you must have colors, you must have a national anthem, which is both poetry and music. So that's how we bond. And so we continue the bonding process because every country has its own music. Well, not every country, but we surely have our own music. So we bonded to Steel Pan. We bonded to Tassa. We bonded to Calypso, Soca, because we've been hearing this music as a child growing up. So in our society, we have many different things that causes us to be trini. We have certain things we say things a certain way, we dance in a particular way. Where am I going with this? The most dysfunctional, let me say, the most financially dysfunctional group in the country is of people of African descent. Why is that so? What is so different in African culture that causes us to be this? Not all of us, by the way. Some of us are dysfunctional. And I want to say something today that has been bothering me since the Black Lives Matter movement, since the first time I saw those images of human beings being slaughtered in the U.S. And that is to say, and then that is not the worst part, is what other people see when they see that happening about an entire race of people. And how they only focus on the negative side of the race. And even people of the race, of my race. I can't separate myself from my race, nor do I want to. But I want to say that we are not separate from each other. If we see a vagrant on the street, and I want to remind you all that vagrancy is a walk in the park when compared to what happened during slavery. I don't want to talk about that too much this morning. I just want to give you some quick things just to have you thinking this morning. Would I make fun of a vagrant for his position in life? Would I expect him to have children or her to have children? I'm saying vagrant now, it could also be homeless people without resources. Can I expect them to raise functional human beings? Is that a realistic expectation? The answer is no. Would I make fun of that person who does not have the means? And I'm not just talking about financial means. I am talking about the spiritual wherewithal, the emotional wherewithal to be able to raise a healthy, happy human being. Human beings have different level of developments that are very important for them to be functional in society. And any one of those things that are not done properly, they are not going to be functional. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back to the Genesis now. So how does life begin? Most people learn about sexuality from pornography. I want to repeat that. Most people learn about sexuality from pornography. Pornography is no part of African science or spirituality. Because, in fact, if we go back to Egypt, which has the oldest, what we call the 42 negative confessions, you will see that it starts off by saying, I have not I will not, I have not. And they have a whole lot of different values. I have not been dishonest. I have not XYZ. And so those values, when you instill values into children, they grow up with those values. Now, whenever I wear the mask, like most people, it kind of affects your throat. And so I really recommend this shield as a sidebar, right? So back on the topic now. So when you started off in life, you entered the course. Every young man dream in life is to enter the course, which we call intercourse. So of course we know that the penis goes into the vagina, and what happens next where life is concerned is that in that course, about 60 million sperm starts its swim, because sperm has motility and mobility, which is how fast it swims from the uterus all the way up to get to the ovaries. But before it gets to the ovaries where it meets the egg, it has to go through the canal, it has to go through the fallopian tube, and only of 60 million sperms, only one gets selected, unless it's a twin. I just saying, unless there are other things, but one sperm meets one egg, and that's how life begins. The sperm is the smallest cell in the human body, and the egg is the largest. Can you imagine? So the egg makes the right side of your brain, and see, the right side of your brain is where spirituality lies, and that is where your emotions are. That is where your creativity lies. That is your mother. All of us are both male and female. In African science, you have a male and female principle. The Chinese call it the yin and the yang. But essentially, the oldest form of herbology, the oldest form of spirituality documented, comes out of Africa, comes out of Egypt, from a very short so-called pygmy called by the French man called Imhotep. And Imhotep is really the first person to document. He was the first surgeon. He built great pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And the Edmund Papyrus, which was named by the European who discovered his scrolls. Everything we know now in terms of herbs, the genesis of it came out of that space and time. So going back to how life begins now. So 60 million sperms on this race, on this course. And only, all of us listening to us right now this morning, were 1 in 60 million sperms. Young men in my office I've seen, because we do these tests or recommend these tests. We can check different things to see if you're healthy, because we know that if you have a healthy sperm and a healthy egg, we have a healthy baby. You see how far going back now, right? A healthy egg and a healthy sperm equals a healthy baby. So how do we raise a healthy child? Starts from what you eat, because what you eat dictates the health of your baby, right? We don't want to make sick babies who have asthma or upper respiratory issues or have allergies or eczema and all these different things. Today, this is another sidebar now, but we had an event many years ago, I think it was back in 2013, and I mentioned this before, Dr. Tyrone Haynes, he's a professor, and he said that today, in today's world, a child today is faced with 200 chemicals that I and many of you in your late 30s or 30s, 40s didn't have when you were born. So we're into this chemical era now, so we have all kinds of added things that the immune system or the liver has to detox. Right, so back now to how our lives began. So 60 million sperms meets this one egg in this 7-day period, which we call ovulation. And in that period of ovulation, that window is when the egg gets to become what we call a zygote. And that zygote is where your life begins. Now, in each trimester, we have different emotional developments, according to Dr. Africa and his work. And for example, in the first trimester, a child, if the mother is stressed out, the child has trouble with bonding and reattachment in the first trimester. And second trimester and third trimester, we have different emotional developments. So many people are, even though we say, but he's a big man or she's a big woman, why is she still behaving like that? But if the big man, the question is, did the big man or woman become big without programming, without learned behavior? That's the question. So if a child is traumatized from even within the womb now, even within the womb during the trimesters, before they're even born now. So I want to explain to you right now today on national radio why almost all of you, including myself, was nurtured unknowingly to our parents in most cases, because we didn't have this information, was nurtured to be and taught to be dysfunctional. I don't know if you will accept it, but I'm just going to give you the information. So, when you start out in life, we have many studies to show the different aspects and how we became dysfunctional. I want to start off by talking about some women issues now, because women, again, every man's dream is to have sex with a woman. I'm just talking about from a scientific perspective now. I'm not dealing with all the other variations of sexuality this morning. So every young man dream. Before the young man dreams, my thing is, young men, please learn about a woman. She is very delicate. She is very complex, and she has a cycle every month. And so understanding that she has special needs, and for her to understand that she has special needs. And so we don't see the breast as a sex object in African spirituality. We don't see the bottom as a sex object in African spirituality. We see the breast as the giver of the most important substance produced on the face of this earth that they are now using now to put into supplements to boost the immune system, which is breast milk. And so it is not really her asset, although she treats it like that. And then we look at things in a very carnal way, but we're looking at the most spiritual creature created by whatever God we believe in, because in that woman, in the womb, is where life, the magic of life begins. So I want to go back by saying that sex, the function of sex, is not to be linked to pornography, but to be seen as being in the right mindset, so that when you actually create life, the instant where the sperm meets the egg and forms a zygote, the mindset of both parents is important, because you are creating, you are inviting a spirit into your space. It's very important to understand that. So this is how to make a functional human being now. The mother should be eating healthy foods. The father should be eating healthy foods. They should both be themselves functional human beings, because remember, if you are dysfunctional before you get into a relationship, and many couples now, as we all know, we live in a society where divorce rates are very high. And the reason why divorce rates are very high is because people have not bonded to themselves, so that they don't understand that they themselves are male and female. I just said to you, the right side of your brain is your female principle, and the left side is your male principle. So that your father's sperm literally made the left side of your brain, and your mother egg make the right side. So that if the mother and father isn't connected and isn't holistic and don't fight against each other's principles, then that spiritual aspect translates into the child. Now, I just want to cite some studies just to give you some ideas. I'm going to get to the actual birthing process very soon. So in each trimester, we develop different traits emotionally, and we develop those traits, and that we start to get affected from that point. So you don't even know why you're affected emotionally from that point. Then when you're born now, the mother says, I don't want to breastfeed this child for long, because if I breastfeed the child, my breast is going to drop. Woman, that is not true. I have had the privilege to have an amazing wife and to have 4 children, and I delivered all of my children. They were all home births, and I cut their umbilical cords. So I'm speaking to you from somebody who has been there, done that in the right way as far as I could have, because I started off by not separating myself from the fact that we grew up with some level of dysfunction. So that I've seen when you eat healthy, what a normal birthing process is like. All of the people I work with, their birthing process is 4 hours. All the women who spent as much as $70,000 to fertility clinics, and some didn't get pregnant, they were able to come to us, and we gave them herbs and we helped them. They were able to not just get pregnant, but to have a healthy pregnancy. Now, the issue we have in society has to do with males. One of the main issues is with males, because the male doesn't understand the female, and so when she gets pregnant, her emotional state changes. And I just said to you before, if the man doesn't understand that he is no longer around because he finds this woman not behaving the way she used to when I fell in love with her, he's also not prepared for when she starts to breastfeed and the breast no longer belongs to him, because a child is breastfeeding. And if the child does not breastfeed for 3 to 5 years, it affects the child's intelligence. This is according to a study done in Israel. We have other studies that show, for example, again, this is before you even know yourself now, right? We have studies that show, this particular study here is medical and surgical intervention during birth. And of course, it continues to rise all over the world. And they were looking at it in Australia. And they showed that women who have C-sections are around 50%, around 50% have labor-induced or augmented forms or speed up with synthetic hormones to have the birth, right? And so this was published. And so they looked at 50,000 women. And what they discovered was that the babies who were born from that process, which is not a natural birthing process, but babies who experienced an instrumental birth, forceps or vacuum, following induction or augmentation, had the highest risk of jaundice and feeding problems, needing treatment in the first 28 days of life. This is before you know yourself. Babies born by C-section had higher rates of being cold and needing treatment in the hospital for this compared to babies born via vaginal birth. Then you also have issues where children born under emergency C-sections had the highest rate of metabolic disorders such as diabetes, obesity by 5 years of age. This is before you even know yourself. I'm trying to tell you why we didn't have this, our parents didn't have this information. Rate of respiratory infections such as pneumonia and bronchitis, metabolic disorders, and eczema were higher among children who experienced any form of birth intervention than those born vaginally. So when a woman doesn't eat the right foods, she can't even think to imagine having natural childbirth, because it is not possible, because those foods, literally, your uterus starts off the size of your fist and grows 1,000 times the size to that of a very big watermelon. And for that to happen, the uterus is a muscle, and the muscle needs to have magnesium to relax. The muscle needs to have zinc to relax. If there's too much calcium, it constricts, and then the two pelvic bones and the muscles that connect it have to stretch and to move all the way out for this baby head to come through. So therefore, if the mother is eating junk foods or acidic foods cause the muscles to contract. You're with me? So that babies who mothers were in labor for longer than 2 to 4 hours, it starts to get more complicated when they get to 6 to 8 hours. And I know people in labor for 2 to 3 days. And just by being in labor for 2 to 3 days, because of you eating junk foods, because you're born to junk foods, I'll get to that after. So that before you're even born, your health status is predicted by the health of the woman. I want to repeat that. Before you're even born, all of us listening to me right now, ask your mother or father what the diet was like before giving you birth. I just said to you, acidic foods, junk foods. There's a study I took a note of today to tell you as well. Let me see if I find it quickly. It was very interesting. It shows that that women, for example, with endometriosis, PCOS, or fibroids, any foods that influence their hormone regulation, particularly estrogen balance, can negatively affect those with people with those conditions. So what foods are we talking about? Alcohol, caffeine, gluten, red meat or processed meat, and saturated and trans fats. The foods women eat could be tied to their risk of infertility as well. A study from Australia found, and researchers found that eating fast foods regularly was linked to a 2-fold increase in the risk of infertility in women of childbearing age. What's more, not eating sufficient fruit was tied to a 50% increase in infertility, and eating fruit several times a day appeared to reduce the amount of time it took to conceive. So there's a direct link between what we eat, how easy it is for us to get pregnant. We have an epidemic now with men. Let me switch on the men on the male side now, where men in their 20s, that the sperm count supposed to be 60 million, is 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Because alcohol and cigarettes decrease, and junk food, and acidic foods, and acidic drinks reduce your sperm count. So now men and women have trouble conceiving. And it's an expensive thing. You can't conceive. You have to go to a fertility clinic and spend $70,000+ to get pregnant. And the fertility clinic is not addressing the fact that we're not working with a healthy sperm and a healthy egg. Because most of the times if you can't get pregnant, it means you're unhealthy. So we have to address that first before we move into that. So let's take a short break. We have so much to say in such little time. But let's take a break. And when we come back, we continue chatting about how to heal the Black family. Stay tuned.
Levette HFB Spa now offers the best fat-burning technologies available today. You can lose 2 to 8 centimeters of belly fat per treatment in just 40 minutes. Stubborn belly fat, back fat, or love handles are no match for our combined treatment approach. Sculpt, tighten skin, and contour your body with no downtime and see immediate results. Look it, feel it, Levette. Call now, 674-5015, and come in for a free assessment. Levette, perfect health discovered.
All right, so we're here and we're chatting this morning about healing the Black family. Again, this is for all families, for all human beings, really. But we're trying to address some things that really affect in the Black community. The Black male has the highest incidence of heart disease and prostate cancer. Black females have higher incidence of fibroids, cystic ovaries, infertility. And, it's something that we have to work on, and we have to really understand the genesis of where this issue started and how we're going to fix it and what's the solution. So we have to bond to African culture. And the question really is, what is African culture? The oldest form of African culture that we know about that we know about is in Egypt. And we talk about Imhotep, the first herbalist in the world. I'm going to have on this series a couple of special guests. One of them his name is Mugenda, and he's a 10th generation shaman from Central West Africa. And he, in that part of Central West Africa, which a lot of us actually came from during the passage of slavery, that part of Africa, some of them still live in the forest. And he knows over 1,000 herbs. As a master herbalist myself, I've learned so much from him, and I really have to visit him. It's almost 4 years now I've been trying to go to visit him. Of course, now with coronavirus, it may be impossible for a while now. But nonetheless, he knows the herbs, and they were taught to know these herbs from a spiritual perspective. So in their tribe, they see someone and they are able to sense the energy of the person and use the plants. He says the plant has an energy of its own, not just the chemical ingredient in the plants. And by the way, they are the oldest living herbalists. Archaeologists have them at over 100,000 years old. So this is long before any other form of medicine, just so that you're aware of how far back. But Black people don't really know themselves because we were not taught these things. So we have bonded to a very dysfunctional culture. My son was looking at television, and he was looking at a show called Minions, and on the Minions, somebody hit somebody a slap. Of course, it's a cartoon, right? So it's fun. He could have been about 2 years old at the time, and he looked at me with the eyes of the Minions to hit his father a slap. And at that moment, I realized where we have a culture of laughing at people. We looked at shows like the Three Stooges, and we looked almost all the European programming for children is all about laughing at other people and other people who are disadvantaged or may look different to you. These are all things we learn. We learn everything from the television programming, which is what it's called. Not all of it was dysfunctional. Sesame Street wasn't so bad. These days, I wonder what the children are really looking at, because now they could find whatever they want to look at and decide to bond to that and to bond to that behavior and to have that mindset. So how are we going to heal the black family? We have to first start by re-educating the black woman, and again, all women, that they are the most spiritual thing on the face of this earth, and that their uterus, I would say, is the holiest place in the universe, because in the uterus, life begins. A man, while his role is extremely important, his role during pregnancy is a supportive role, because the woman goes through emotional issues, and then she has what we call postpartum depression, and I have treated that in women, and they really do feel to fling the child through the window, because they have the realization that for the first time what their breast is actually for, which is really culture shock for women. And I have had enough young women in my office who got pregnant, had their babies, and they have all kinds of issues. Their nipple issues, they have bleeding and all kinds of different stuff. So that these are things that we have to know. What we should be doing is a rite of passage to teach young women when they're coming of age how to use their devices that God gave them to be the nurturers that they were born to be, and to teach young men during that process to be supportive. So they are able to help with postpartum depression, because they're able to help the woman, maybe give her a massage, maybe, don't get upset. Even if she's upset, you have to be the bigger person. Because when you shout at children, you teach them that shouting is okay. And when you hit children, you teach them that violence is okay. You can imagine a child is maybe 2 feet high. You are 3 times their height, assuming you're tall like me. Imagine somebody even twice your height over you, screaming at you, and how scared you will be. We have to find different ways to communicate. This is just the first series, of course. We're going to go into a lot more issues next week. I want to focus specifically on men and how the role that men have in raising and changing what we know to be the black family and the role that we have. So let's take one more short break before we close today.
Introduces Levette Fit 360 Studio. We now offer static contraction training that studies show is twice as effective at increasing bone density than bone anabolic drugs. In less than 10 minutes, the 1-rep gym workout gets you 10% stronger each session, and you rest more the stronger you get. Eventually, you only work out once every 3 months and continue to see gains in strength and bone density. The future of fitness is here. Get fit, stay fit. Levette. Call now, 674-5015, and get your first workout free.
All right, so give us a call, 674-5015. That number again is 674-5015. And we deal with all types of issues with infertility, men with low sperm count, men with diabetes who also have erectile dysfunction problems. We have Well, everything starts with a holistic health assessment, and we have that is on special this month. Visit our website at liveathealth.com or give us a call 674-5015 and celebrate with us. We are celebrating 9 years this month, and we have lots of specials. So give us a call. Get your free book, The Only Answer to Cancer, and a free CBC blood test as well. So thank you so much for listening. As we always say, live mighty, live healthy, live at.
There's only one way to start your week right, and that's with Dr. Livert. Join him right here on your radio every Monday morning at 9 a.m. for your dose of the health and wellness in a program that is sure to change your life. Popular for promoting Livert rather than diet, Dr. Livert has transformed a number of lives. Countrywide is now live on the street, 919 FM, every Monday from 9 a.m. Tune in this Monday and also learn about the U-Juice to build your immunities and promote overall great health. Dr. Livert on 919 FM. This and every Monday at 9 a.m. It's time that you live